So my name is David Kolwick, and I'm with Amgen. I'm a principal scientist there. Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I think, what's probably going to end up happening is we're going to see more and more supply chain transparency and an increase of that. So you've seen several presentations starting yesterday, actually, with one of the sessions on upstream cell culture and raw material and scale up, where there were several presentations given both by end users, so the customers, around some of the activities that they're using and some of the tools they're using to manage their supply chain. Tools like Resilink that give them monitoring capabilities similar to what other industries use, such as Boeing in the aircraft industry, to look at variables that can happen in their overall supply chain, weather events, geopolitical events, etc. And as well as suppliers, SAFC was one of those suppliers that presented some information on things they're doing to better characterize the source of the raw materials and some of the impurity profiles of the raw materials, so things that can impact our manufacturing process. So I think you're going to see more collaboration and integration of data between the end users and the suppliers as we move forward. Yeah, I think what you see the developments of the suppliers building in terms of their capabilities is things around better analytical technology. So by that I mean specifically characterizing impurities in the raw materials, looking at the functionality of the raw materials specifically for customer processes. And I think customers and the end users are being more transparent in how they use those raw materials. And as a result, then I think the suppliers of those raw materials are trying to do a stronger, better, improved job in actually characterizing those raw materials and how they can best be used in the manufacturing process, and looking at some of the functional attributes of those raw materials, things like dissolution, impurity profiles, looking as well at potency of those raw materials in the actual processes that they're used in. So we're seeing a real collaborative development of both analytical assays and transparency in the application that I think is helping the raw materials better fit the end use at the end of the day. Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because we've all talked about globalization. I think now it's finally starting to happen. You're seeing some markets around the world start to open up. You're seeing those markets, start to approve some of these drugs. We're obviously seeing biosimilars as well, which is opening up some of these therapeutics and biotherapeutics additional markets that maybe they weren't available in before. So I think what you're going to see is that people are going to have to kind of, I think originally there might have been a bit of a binary approach when it came to some of where the sourcing of raw materials and where things came from. People want to stay away from emerging markets, but now actually they're going to be licensing and approving therapeutics in those markets. I think we have to take a more of a functional approach and say to ourselves, okay, what are the functional attributes, what are the safety attributes that we need to have, build those into better certificates of analysis, better specifications with those raw materials in order to be able to source locally so that we can be able to provide those therapeutics in the local markets that they're targeted for. Yeah, I think some of the things already that we're learning about, some of the emerging trends are the build-up, I think I mentioned earlier, about sort of the analytical technologies with the suppliers, as well as really trying to build this holistic supply chain. So, I think traditionally it's been one of those situations where we've looked at suppliers as sort of the N-1, so who's our immediate supplier to our company, Amgen. I think now we're looking at the supply chain a little bit more globally and integrated, and looking at who's our supplier, right? So the N-2 and the N-3, and trying to get all the way back to the point of origin. So, one of the things, once again, I think we're kind of parallel processing some other industries. Boeing has a phrase called dirt to plane, right? So looking at it end to end in terms of supply chain and what it takes to happen. I think we're going to head in that same direction, in a sense, from point of manufacture to patient, and what are all the nodes in that manufacturing supply chain. You're starting to see a dissemination and an understanding better of what that supply chain looks like. Well, I think it's a great opportunity to interact with the suppliers. It's a great opportunity to share ideas and also see what your peers are doing as well in the industry. And I think it allows us to provide a more unified voice. So if we as Amgen have a conversation with a supplier, that's one conversation. But I think when a supplier hears that conversation from an Amgen, a Biogen, a Genentech, et cetera, the industry as a whole, I think there's more strength in that discussion at that point, and it promotes a stronger dialogue about how we can resolve the issue and move forward and build the capabilities within the overall industry. Ultimately, it's around trying to improve patient safety, access to these therapeutics, and I think together we can collaborate to do that more effectively, and these kind of opportunities provide us that venue to do that. I think when you bring together a group of individuals like this, right, it's a nucleus. You get a critical mass built together that way. And I think by having that critical mass, people can share ideas, exchange ideas, and I think through that then you get a more rapid evolution of a solution at the end of the day. And by that exchange as well, people become aligned, both end users and suppliers in that process. And I think ultimately it builds better solutions for the industry and in a more rapid time frame than maybe would be you'd be able to do in other venues.